Hello and welcome to This Week in MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week Show, talking all about baseball, the week that was in baseball stories and around the world, interesting stories and news. My name is Rich Baxter.
And I'm Gary Mack.
And we're going to be trolloping through a number of stories you may have missed in the regular media that you listen to. And Gary and I bring these stories to you each week. And Gary, you have one to start us off this week, a great story that some of us may not have heard of.
Well, Rich, I don't know which story that would be.
Your lead story, so to speak, of the week.
Oh, well, I guess on my list I have Don Zimmer passing, but I can find now.
Yeah, it's a shame. Don Zimmer, great of the game, and you always expect these old timers to be around forever, so to speak. Especially Don Zimmer. It doesn't seem like it's possible he could be away from the game.
Yeah, I agree. An original Met. Though he wasn't here that long, 52 at bats before he got traded to Cincinnati Reds, but he spent a lifetime in baseball, 65, 66 years, and did it all: manager, bench coach, player. He won the World Championship with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and just a character of the game that, we're losing a lot of these characters now, Rich. And I don't know if it's good for the game or it's not good for the game that we're losing all these guys. And we just got to try to preserve their memory by, interviews and stuff. Thank goodness we have that the stories remain. This year in New York, we lost Ralph Kiner, of course, and now Don Zimmer with his anecdotes and stories. But beautiful life, 83 years old, and can't complain about that.
That's for sure. And Joe Torre had some nice words to say about Don Zimmer. And it's interesting, one of the recent stories I remember about Don Zimmer is how a former Met and Philly actually went after Zimmer one time. A hilarious story when Zimmer was with the Red Sox.
Oh, the Pedro Martinez.
Yeah, Pedro Martinez. I bet Pedro probably feels terrible, but that's one of the all-time greatest moments of baseball, I think, there.
Well, in the heat of battle, in the heat of the moment, strange things can happen.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, a good buddy of mine is joining the show live here, so if you hear some comments coming out of the studio here, my buddy Mike is joining us for this live show. And how you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing great, Rich. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for stopping by the show. A great friend of the show there. He was on Fox News earlier in the week, and great of him to drop by here to watch our show.
Well, I'm blessed to be here.
Thanks a lot. Well,
can I just interject on one thing? You're
Sure.
talking about Don Zimmer.
Uh-huh.
I just heard a story about Don Zimmer on the radio, given by none other than Vince Scully. And Vince Scully said that he got permission one year or one game to sit in the Dodgers dugout.
Uh-huh.
And he creeped into the dugout after the national anthem, and he's sitting in the dugout. And he didn't think they were playing the Chicago Cubs. And he didn't think anybody recognized him. And John Vukovich, who was, I guess, a first base coach for the Cubs, goes walking by at the end of the inning, and he flips something to Vince Scully, and it was a baseball. And on the baseball, the words were written, if a fight breaks out, I'm going after you. And it was signed by Don Zimmer.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So that's one of those stories that makes Don Zimmer quite a character of baseball. And as you said, Gary, these characters, so to speak, are getting fewer and fewer in the game. But you have the Yasiel Puigs coming into the league to pick up some slack and all. So great loss this week in the passing of Don Zimmer.
Yeah, and Rich, one more thing. I heard, interestingly enough, that he had met Babe Ruth, who we've spoken about on this program a few times. He played with Jackie Robinson. He played for Casey Stengel, and he coached Derek Jeter. So he's had a real breadth of baseball history there with Don Zimmer.
Yes, he has. Hey, by the way, that's a nice backdrop that you have if you're watching the show on our YouTube channel here, MLB This Week. Check out Gary's backdrop. It's very neat. Very nice.
Well, after these past 6 games, it hasn't been so neat, but, thanks for the backdrop. Got to work on the lighting a little. Still working on that, figuring that out, but we'll get there.
What is the background?
Gary has the Mets logo on a nice blue background back there. If you're listening to the podcast and you want to check out our video show, you can check us out on youtube.com. Just search MLB This Week. It's all one letter and one word, rather. And you can see the backdrop and check Gary and I out doing the video portion of the show.
And Rich, you've got some news about Pete Rose.
Yes, I do. Pete Rose, believe it or not, going to be a manager just for one game. The Bridgeport Bluefish, which is part of the Independent Baseball League, they don't have to follow the rules of MLB. So they're going to invite Pete Rose pretty soon, within the next week, to be manager for a day in Bridgeport, New Jersey, or Bridgeport, Connecticut, rather. They're playing the Lancaster Barnstormers in that game. So it's going to be an interesting time there for Pete Rose fans. I know a lot of Pete Rose fans are out there. They want him to get back into the baseball arena, so to speak.
I'm really surprised that somebody from the Atlantic League haven't picked him up earlier than this. You know, we have out here where I live in Long Island, we have the Long Island Ducks, who've won the Atlantic League Championship the last 2 seasons, and really strange that he hasn't been approached by one of these independent leagues sooner. There's a couple of them around, but that's probably one of the most successful, the Atlantic. So,
yeah,
you know.
Many years ago there was a Phillies, or actually Atlantic City team associated with that independent league. And I'll tell you, if it was closer around the area that I live, I'd probably check that out because I'm a big Pete Rose fan and always have been.
Yeah, and it's only one day, so we'll see if he gets him anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, Pete Rose coming back to the game, if it's only for just one game, that's good news for me. A lot of people have mixed feelings about him still, but in this corner, I still prefer Pete Rose.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rich. I always liked him, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. You can't be the hit leader and not be in the Hall of Fame, and they're letting these steroids guys back in, so why not give him another chance? And maybe the next commissioner, they let bygones be bygones. Let him say his mea culpa to the public and let him back in.
That's for sure. Well, check him out if you're in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area, that is, and he'll be appearing there probably within the next week. So check the news and go out and see Pete Rose. And Gary, you have the next story up tonight.
Well, Rich, kind of a bad story, and here we are with an injury to a pitcher, but it's not the elbow. It's the Orioles lefty and former Met, Johan Santana. He's going to miss the rest of the 2014 season after suffering a torn left Achilles tendon. He was working his way back from a shoulder surgery, 2 shoulder surgeries as it was, and was on the verge of beginning a minor league rehab assignment when he suffered the injury while retrieving a batted ball during extended spring training start. The Orioles were hoping that they would get him back and with a healed shoulder and would help out the rotation. And one of the best pitches of this era, Johan Santana, and there's a good possibility that this could be it for him. Though they say he's pretty stubborn, and he may try to come back yet again from this.
Yeah, it's a shame about Johan Santana. I did hear a story just today on Carlos Baerga as well. I believe he is out for the rest of the season, trying to come back from injury there. But those old Mets still trying to hang on and extend that career as long as they can.
They hear that ka-ching and that check every week, or whenever they get paid. It's hard to turn down.
That's for sure. Well, some greats of the game there not doing too well. And Gary, there's another story out there. Just stumbled upon this one this afternoon. We've been talking a lot about the pitchers that have had the Tommy John surgery or required surgeries this year and been on the DL. Max Scherzer has actually taken out an insurance policy before the season started even, and when he's injured now, he's going to get paid automatically, and that's coming at a cost to him. But he's one of those pitchers that didn't take chance for what it was and insured his arm.
Well, that's a pretty smart thing to do, and probably worth the money up front, right? And if he gets hurt, he gets a big paycheck anyway. So smart thinking on his part.
Yeah, he did not divulge how much the insurance policy cost, but already paying dividends, especially he was offered about $145 million and turned it down in the off-season, gambling that he could be worth a lot more to a club or even the Tigers if he chooses to stay with them. But interesting baseball savvy there with Max Scherzer insuring himself against somewhat financial ruin there.
Yeah, certainly a smart thing to do, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more guys doing it after Scherzer took this action, and they'll all be watching to see how it pans out. And Rich, this past week we had the big MLB draft, and I see you have a story about a great of the game and his young son.
Yes, Mariano Rivera just retired from the Yankees recently, but the Yankees paid him back, so to speak, again, and drafted his son, who is also named Mariano Rivera. He came as a 472nd pick, so he didn't go too high for the Yankees, but that's pretty good news that the Yankees decided to draft one of their own, so to speak, and happened to be Mariano's son.
Yeah, good pick. Some teams will do that with big-name players if their sons are got any potential at all, and they draft them low, so it's really not they're not really wasting a high pick at all. So good luck to them. Maybe it'll pan out.
Absolutely. Well, you have one of my interesting topics here when I read your notes for this week's show. And it's something that I didn't hear about during the week, this past week in baseball, but you have a story about Harry Carey's diary.
Well, Rich, we all like to imbibe and have a drink or two, but apparently Hall of Fame broadcaster Harry Carey, he kept a diary of the bars that he frequented in the 70s. And part of this was because he had an incentive in his contract with the White Sox. He was working for them at the time, tied to attendance. So really part of his partying was drumming up business to get folks to come out to Comiskey Park or to watch the game on television. And apparently it worked very well for Harry. He became very wealthy under this arrangement. But in '72, it was early in his time with the White Sox, and he was still keeping receipts of every 3-martini lunch, no matter what time of day that lunch was. How do we know? you know, in an astounding revelation, Carey also kept a diary of his bar visits with copies of receipts tucked inside. Every saloon he walked into, every drink he paid for, every personally he partied with, all down on paper. So this has just come out recently. Um, don't Not sure where it was discovered. I think it was given to one of his associates, and they decided to release it. And towards the end of the diary, on Christmas Eve, comes the kicker. After spending at least 354 of the previous 357 days in bars, Carey writes in a bold hand, vacation in Acapulco, then a vacation every day until the year runs out. So Harry had some year there, 354 days out of 357 he spent in a bar.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so curious as to take a look at that because it's probably like a who's who of Major League Baseball there, and you often hear about a lot of these players that have these outrageous nightlife aspects to their career as well, and it's another side of baseball that the fans never get to see. So that's an interesting story there. Harry Carey and all the bars he's been to. Wow. I think that book would sell 1 million copies if it was ever released.
I think you would, Rich.
Well, my good buddy that's in the studio here with me this evening brought up an interesting topic that I hadn't thought about, but Yogi Berra story in this past week, a World War II veteran, and believe it or not, Yogi Berra found himself at the D-Day site. As a young man at the age of 18, he was actually at D-Day. Little known fact there in baseball.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Yogi was a Navy guy, and I believe he was driving one of those landing crafts that came into the beaches at Normandy and then went back out to get more soldiers, and very dangerous. I remember him recounting the story one time, and apparently bullets were whizzing by his head and stuff. You know, Yogi. But thank goodness that he survived that, and all the folks that survived that. Shame that all the people, the young men that lost their lives going ashore at Normandy, but what a great story, Yogi Berra on D-Day. It's something you don't hear about a lot.
Yeah, that's for sure. And my buddy that is with me in studio tonight here actually went over to Normandy and had a tour of the area over there. So he's seen Omaha Beach and surrounding areas, and quite a sight to behold there.
Oh, it certainly is. It's very awe-inspiring, to say the least. And I believe Yogi was in the Coast Guard, and most people think that the Coast Guard is like one of the safer branches of the service, but it was the Coast Guard that drove the Higgins boats on shore, and they had the highest percentage of casualties and killed in action of any branch of the service at Normandy.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm just reading a story here. It actually says that he was a seaman first class, and as an 18-year-old, they asked him how was it exactly to go through that, to land on the beach in Normandy, and he actually answered it was more like the 4th of July to him. He didn't know that it was really real with all the explosions and everything, but miraculously he lived through it and became a great baseball player and manager as well.
Yeah, and then, as they say, the rest is history.
That's for sure. So D-Day just passed a couple of days ago, and it's kind of sad because as the new generations are coming up, D-Day to them is just, another day. But, of course, a lot of people that are older remember it well when the country was almost lost and the world was on the run from a tyrannical dictator, but congratulations to Yogi Berra. He made it out of there, and we won the war. So,
Yep.
Gary, you have another story for us here, and
Well,
I'm going to skip a topic on you here. And the beloved Cubs are leaving WGN. I can't believe that.
90 years, the Cubs have been at that radio station, TV station, and they confirmed this past week, the WGN radio president, Jimmy DeCastro, that the Cubs are leaving the station after this season. They had a deal with the Cubs have a new deal that they announced with the CBS-owned WBBM AM 780 station out there. They say the parting was a difficult decision for the station, which has been together with the Cubs for, as we said, 90 years. But the station had to make the decision because they determined that the business deal that the Cubs insisted on did not make economic sense for the station. So when all those people that grew up in the Midwest and listening to WGN, and if you remember when we first started getting cable, WGN was the superstation, along with TBS and it was a couple other ones. And we used to watch the Cubs games because we got that station for free on the cable. And now the Cubs are going to be with a new station starting next year.
Yeah, and it seems like the Cubs are making a lot of changes in regards to that, and possibly a renovation or a total new stadium for the Cubs. There's a lot of scuttlebutt about that I've been reading about during the week. And it's got a lot of the Cubby fans up in arms. They're not too happy with not being able to tune into a station that they all remember and love so well already. And they're about tradition there in Chicago. I was actually watching the Cubs this afternoon a little bit, and the wave broke out a little bit in the stadium. And a lot of fans are against the wave in Chicago. They discourage it. So as the wave started, there was about more than half the fans telling people to stop it, because they just want to watch a baseball game. They're real hard-nosed baseball fans there, and all that wave stuff they can do without, so to speak.
Well, I guess you got to have a little bit of fun now and then, and maybe they don't like having fun in Chicago. I don't know.
Yeah, and Mike has a comment for
I
us.
just have a question. Who was the young man that interfered with the baseball in the game with the Cubs? That caught the ball that they ruled in fan interference.
Oh, Bartsman or something like that. Bart something or other. Steve
Yes.
Bartlesman?
Steve Bartman was
Bartman.
the name. And thanks for Wikipedia to that. I just looked it up as Mike was saying. But yeah, that's very odd. Just past the 10th anniversary of that event last year in 2013. But very strange there. Steve Bartman becomes an instant celebrity on that play.
I wouldn't have been surprised if the Cubs fans were like pushing him from one person to another around around the stadium, and then maybe somebody drop him.
Well, I hear, I don't know how true it is, I heard that he had to actually move out of Chicago because it was too much pressure on him and his family, threats and whatnot from the Cubby fans. So they take their baseball seriously there. But look, it was a reaction thing, and it cost them. But what a shame.
Yeah, and you just never know what you're going to find at a baseball game or what's going to happen to you at a baseball game. So you have to be very careful about what happens when you're there. And of course, I'm looking at a picture on this happening right now, and the guy had a headphone set. He was listening to the game, and it just didn't mean to do anything wrong. There were several people with their arms stretched out, but he happened to be the one to take the ball away from the Cubs fielder.
Yeah, Moisty Salou was out there in left field, and he just stuck his glove out, and the ball found it, and the rest is history.
That's for sure. Well, more draft news for us here on MLB This Week. The Washington Nationals drafted Ryan Ripken. He was taken in the 15th round by the Washington Nationals, a local team. And I'm sure Dad is happy about that one.
Well, maybe Dad would have been happy if he went to the Orioles, but hey, Washington's close enough, and good luck to the young man. And there's another case of a name, a famous name, and a son being drafted. So good luck to him. Hope he makes something.
That's for sure. Well, Ryan Ripken drafted, and here's a couple more names that went. These players were drafted much higher than Ripken. In the first round, the first pick went to Houston Astros. Brady Aiken was the first pick. Number 2 was the Miami Marlins. They picked a guy named Tyler Kolek, all pitchers here. Number 3, the White Sox, Carlos Rodon. And number 4, first position player other than a pitcher, is Kyle Schwarber. He went to the Cubs. He's a catcher. And then the 5th pick overall went to the Minnesota Twins. Nick Gordon, he's a shortstop. And the 6th pick overall was Alex Jackson for the Seattle Mariners there, out of Rancho Bernardo High School. A famous player in this area came from Rancho Bernardo. Can you name him, Mike? He would be on the Phillies, of course.
Oh, it would probably be, could that be Chase Utley?
Incorrect. That would be
Really?
Mr. Cole Hamels from the same high school, Rancho Bernardo High School.
How many of those first 6 picks were college players as opposed to high school players?
Well, let me see here. I got a couple. Only one, actually.
What, high school?
One player was a college pick. The rest, or actually 2. 2 of the first 6 were college players. The rest were out of high school.
Of course, the Phillies drafted next, right?
No, they didn't. They didn't draft till probably near the end. In fact, they didn't even have a first-round pick. So, and I know Gary has the Mets here. The Metsies didn't even get a great first-round pick, did they, Gary?
Well, they drafted 10th, and they picked Michael Conforto, a 6'2", lefty hitting outfielder from Oregon State, and they went after a bat, and we'll see how he pans out. We've spoken in the past that the Mets can draft pitchers, but they can't have trouble drafting those hitters. I always get around and say they should merge with the Milwaukee Brewers and help them pick a couple of pitchers, and they can help us pick a couple of hitters because they seem to pick up hitters out there. So
that's for sure. And I misspoke. The Phillies did have a first-round pick. They picked 7th overall. Aaron Nola from LSU. He's a right-handed pitcher, so we might be seeing him in about 4 or 5 years.
On what team, though? Who are they going to trade him to?
That's true. Phillies always end up trading their better draft picks. So.
Well, they got to get somebody that's like 35 years old. So
that's it. That's the prerequisite to be on the Phillies. Well, Gary, you have another interesting story. It was an Astros signing a prospect.
Yes, the Houston Astros, they did something this past Monday that no MLB team had ever done. They signed John Singleton, their top prospect, to a long-term contract before he even played a game at the big league level. With the deal, Singleton is on his way to join the Astros from AAA, where he hit 14 homers with 43 RBIs. He made his major league debut this past week. And they signed him, the Astros did, for 5 years and a minimum of $10 million. But as was reported in Yahoo Sports, the contract could be worth up to $35 million over 7 years after 2 option seasons and incentives. Now, he did sign away some of his arbitrational rights and maybe even a year of free agency. But I think this is the new trend that teams are going to offer these young guys a nice amount of money up front, and in return they're going to have to give up some things. But it ensures both the team, any organization, keep their payroll planned out for the next number of years, and it gives the guy money. What happens if he flames out? At least he's got this guaranteed contract. Now, if he takes off and is a superstar, he'll still be young enough at the end of the contract to get a bigger contract. So I think it works out for both sides.
Yeah, this didn't happen years ago. Of course, teams weren't ready to throw that much towards a player, and I don't know. I'm not too thrilled about the way they're handing somebody $35 million for next to nothing.
Well, you have to expect that the guy's got some talent. I mean, after all, look where Houston got him from.
Yeah, well, that remains to be seen. Hopefully, he pans out for that kind of money. But on the other hand, you got the players' union, and are they going to stand still while these guys are signing these contracts, effectively skirting around how the players have laid out these certain timed contracts that these players follow, and then they become eligible after a certain amount of time to make the big bucks if they become a superstar. So some of these guys are not adhering to that right out of the box. So we'll have to see what the Players Association says about these type of deals as well.
But technically, they are independent contractors. They just happen to be with a union, giving the overall rights. But when push comes to shove, it's still me, and I. When you're signing a contract, and if they want to sign this, they shouldn't really stop them from doing anything. And I take it that Springer came from the Phillies organization. Am I right in that?
That's correct.
That is correct. I didn't even know that.
Singleton, yes. He came from the Hunter Pence trade.
Right.
Okay, so
Ouch.
there you have it. So he's either going to be a superstar or a $35 million bust with the Astros.
Whatever way it goes, he'd look much better in a Phillies pinstripes.
Well, we'll see about that, and we'll be following the career of Mr. Singleton now. Gary, let's go over with some National League leaders here as we do the show here on June 8th, 2014. In first place in the NL East is the Atlanta Braves, 32-29 record. Over in the Central, the Milwaukee Brewers are still holding up their end, 38-26. And out west, the San Francisco Giants are tearing it up, 42-21. They're 8-2 in their last 10.
Yeah, and especially this past three where they just got done sweeping my New York Mets, and they look like a house of fire. They look like a team that's really ripping through, and they are going to be a tough team to catch.
Yes, they will, and they're a team that plays like a team, and that's a lot of these players, especially on the Dodgers and all. They have a lot of individuals signed. The Yankees the same way, the Phillies the same way, but the Giants are sort of a gelling team, and that's the kind of teams that generally go far in the league.
And they have a great fan base also that just really get into the game, and they've really built something special out there. And Rich, the American League is still a dogfight there. We have in the American League East, Toronto's got a 5.5 game. They're slowly inching away, not pulling away, but inching away from second place Baltimore, and the Yankees are at 500 ball in third. In the Central, Detroit has got a 3.5 game over the resurgence of the Cleveland Indians, who were down at the bottom of the schedule just a few weeks ago as standing. and have now really asserted themselves back into that race. But Minnesota is at 5.5, and they're the last place team, and they just pulled the shocker off by signing the last free agent available, Kendrys Morales, to a one-year contract. And out west, Oakland is got a 4.5 lead over the L.A. Angels, and a 5.5 lead over Seattle, who's been playing some good ball. And Oakland's an awesome team too. So the two Bay Area teams are playing some really good baseball.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are indeed. Oakland. Who would have guessed that Oakland would be in first place in the first week of June in this season? Not me, for sure.
Is there a young player for Oakland that's tearing it up? A power hitter? I can't think of the name right now. Do you have?
Cespedes?
No, I don't think it's a Latin baseball player.
Oh, Donaldson?
Not Cashmere.
No, I don't know who you said now. That was it. Madsen or Mason or something. Okay.
And of course, out here in the Northeast, we don't get to see the Oakland A's all that much, but they are quietly tearing it up out there, out in the West. They have a lot of names. I brought up their active roster here. They have a lot of names that aren't household names. In fact, there's only a couple of them that I recognize. Nick Punto is on the team. Coco Crisp is an outfielder with them. And other than that, Scott Cashmere is a starter. A lot of these guys I've never even heard of. So Billy Bean's doing it again out there in Oakland.
I believe the guy has about 8 or 10 home runs, something like that.
Let me see if I can bring up the stats real quick.
Because whoever it is, he was with the Phillies too. They let him go a couple years ago as well.
Well, there's Donaldson, who plays third base. He's got 17 home runs for the A's. Not sure if that's the one you're thinking. And at first base, Mr. Moss.
There we go.
He's got 16 home runs.
There he is.
Brandon Moss is his name, out of Monroe, Georgia. So some of these guys are just good baseball players. They haven't really hit it big yet with being household names.
Well, I think in playing out there, they're not in L.A., so that kind of hurts too. They're really a team that people aren't familiar with, and as you say, here in the Northeast, we really don't follow it. They come in rarely. They came in. They just left New York to play the Yankees, but other than that, you don't really see them that much. But they're having a great year, and it's going to be interesting to see if we have a Bay Area World Series.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's coming around faster than we realize it here already. The first week finished in June. Well, I wanted to let all our listeners know to tune in to our podcast. You can find us now on iTunes, the iTunes Music Store. You can find us at Stitcher Radio, StitcherRadio.com. And you can also find us at Podomatic.com. 3 places to download the audio version of the show. And if you're listening to the podcast, you might want to check out the video version. We have surprises that come up every now and again on the show. A lot of gremlins too. So check out our live show, and please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. The more subscribers we get, the more we can bring you live content, and it just gets more fun for us as well. So thanks for listening to the podcast. And Gary, do you have any last notes for the closing of this show, number 12?
Just one closing story, Rich. In honor of the 25th anniversary of the first Seinfeld show, the New York Mets Class A affiliate in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Cyclones, will host a Seinfeld night in July. And the first 2,500 fans in attendance will receive a Keith Hernandez Magic Loogie bobblehead commemorating the episode in which Kramer and Newman accused the former Mets first baseman of spitting at them after a game. Seinfeld famously defended Hernandez by introducing the magic loogie theory. The episode was in 1992, but the original pilot, called Seinfeld Chronicles, aired on July 5th, 1989. Now, the Cyclones are doing a few things different for that game. They are renaming their ballpark for the evening Vandalay Industries Park. Mailmen in uniform get to throw out a ceremonial first pitch, thanks to Newman, of course. Anyone who has a business card indicating that they are, in fact, a latex salesman will receive a free ticket to the game. Fans can visit the information table for an airing of grievances. Closest to the pin, what's a blowhole competition? The foul poles will be renamed as Festivus poles. There will be an Elaine Bennis dancing contest, and everyone runs the bases post-game, but anyone named Jerry gets a head start. Let's see. There will be a cereal eating contest. Anyone named George Costanza will be allowed to join our radio, or this is the Brooklyn Cyclones, the radio broadcast as a color analyst for an inning, and players in puffy shirts for batting practice. So the Cyclones are doing it up for the 25th anniversary of Seinfeld, and I am going to seriously look about getting tickets for that game.
Is no soup for you.
No, maybe no ticket for me either, but we'll see.
I wonder if they're real.
Very interesting there. The Brooklyn Cyclones making the most of that. That's a unique. That's probably the most unique promo I've ever heard of, Gary.
Absolutely.
Well, they do a lot of fun things at the Cyclones games, and they start this weekend. They start next Friday, the 13th. They start in Staten Island for anybody that's in the New York area that's interested. They will be playing those Staten Island Yankees on Friday night, and the home opener is June 14th, Saturday. Again, they'll be playing the Staten Island Yankees, but at MCU Park, soon to be known for one night as Vandalay Industries Park. So get out and catch a minor league game.
July 5th is the date. That's a Saturday, and of course it all coincides with the July 4th weekend, so who knows, maybe I'll go up and catch that game. There's going to be an Elaine dancing contest as well, I just brought up online here.
Yeah.
So very interesting promotion there. Salute to Seinfeld night for the Brooklyn Cyclones. So if you're in the driving distance, check that out. We heartily suggest it.
Yes, sir. It's a lot of fun there, and anytime you can go ahead and go, because it's a great ballpark. Coney Island is right next door, so if you want to go to the amusement park earlier in the day or the beach, and then head on to the ballpark.
That sounds like a great plan. Well, thanks for checking out this edition of MLB This Week with Gary and Rich. We appreciate you stopping by to listen to the show. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. We're at MLB This Week. And Gary, you have another great week, and I hope we find another great lineup of stories for our podcast listeners.
I'm sure we will, Rich. We like to dig, and we always come up with something.
Yes, we do. Well, we'll talk to you again all next week on the next edition of MLB This Week, the MLB This Week Show.